Join us today as we tell a tale of two season threes, The Mandalorian and Picard, as we compare and contrast. Welcome back to those who've been here before. Welcome to those of you who are new to the channel. It's the Geek Cabal channel, which you probably noticed in the intro video. My name is Bobby. There's usually two other gentlemen that are in and out of some of the videos, Chad and Brad. Our scheduling has not been the greatest lately, so we can't meet up as often as we'd like. However, today we have a guest, the oft-mentioned but rarely seen Jim.
Hello, hello.
Probably also referred to him as Jimmy at various points. Same guy. So,
awesome.
Known him for quite a while, longer than the other two, in fact. He is also a very big Star Wars and Star Trek fan. So, hence why he's here with us today. So, for those of you, when we're in here, late April 2023 as we're recording this. So, both Picard and The Mandalorians, both of them have their season threes have run their course. They actually ended the same week, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So, they're now both over. And I don't know that we could find a more different scenario of how these two shows are like a opposite trajectories almost. So, Jim,
Well, obviously they both had their plus and minuses. The Mandalorian, obviously, a huge production, value there. The way that they film their scenes and everything. They actually have a what do they call it? They use Unreal Studio or one of the graphics engines that actually produce like the backgrounds and such. Very neat technology. Going to make obviously other shows that they do going to be fantastic and all of that. Picard looked good though. I'm not going to say it's a worth looking whatever, but obviously it's more of the same Star Trek that we've seen in the first two seasons of Picard. And
right, more enclosed sets versus like the big open shots that we see in Mandalorian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you get that, and then but I feel honestly that the Mandalorians kind of went down a little bit in the story and everything. Like they had the story, they had all these plot points they wanted to lead up to, but I feel like a lot of them didn't even pay off at the end. Versus Picard, there was a couple of moments where I was like, where is that ever going to lead to? Like with the cloaking device, where is that going to go? Because they never mentioned it, but then very end it actually it came in, it did what it needed to do, and kind of redeemed itself in my eyes, because I was like, okay, well that makes sense why they put that point in there at some at some spot. So
yeah, I do actually have something to say about that particular plot point, but we'll get to that. Like Jim said, the Mandalorian, like the first two seasons I felt were really good, and I think part of the issue was they decided to bring Grogu back for the Mandalorian. They didn't like hugely detract from the series, but it was one of those like, really? Like, we seem to be better off with Luke, But like I said, didn't really detract a whole lot from the series. It seemed to be that it just couldn't figure out where it was going and was going to take its sweet time getting there wherever it was. Well, that's the impression I got. I'm not saying it was bad. It was still okay. But, like, if there is a season 4, like, it needs to figure out where it's going, like, from the get-go and start going there. We don't need endless side quests. We need a main quest.
Well, if they're going to do the side quests, they got to make it a longer season.
Yeah, that's the or that, yeah.
Because me personally, I actually liked the droid episode. I know a lot of people probably didn't really care too much for it. Not so much the way it started, but the actual meat and potatoes when they got into, doing the investigation, stuff like that. Just actually seeing, another side, seeing the droid side of things, just exploring that world a little bit. it was an interesting take. Maybe not my favorite episode, but I did like the fact that they kind of went into a little bit more of the day and day. But I feel that needs to be done in a series that's going more than just, you know.
Right. Yeah, that kind of episode would be okay if it's a little bit longer, or if it didn't seem like half the other episodes in the series were also kind of like that. You know, because the one on Coruscant, did we ever establish what the purpose of that episode actually was, other than to acknowledge that the New Republic's absorbing Imperial people, and the one woman's a traitor?
I don't believe so. Now,
like did the rest of the episode accomplish anything?
I didn't feel. I mean, heck, as my son called it, he said it wasn't an episode of The Mandalorian. It was just the man.
Or I suppose we would know what that rock was for the beginning of the following episode that took place right as Order 66 was occurring, and old Jar Jar Jedi there had to get Grogu out, and he goes right by that. So I guess we would know that. And for those of you that don't know, I'm not trying to mock him. The Jedi in question was played by Ahmed Best. And I think that was Disney being like, hey, look, we know you got a lot of flack for playing Jar Jar. Like, want to play not Jar Jar? Here you go. So that was nice. If Jake Lloyd's not currently in prison, they should consider that for him too. I thought he got in some kind of legal troubles while I say that. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, overall, I still think the series is okay. I don't have a problem with the Jack Black and Lizzo episode. No. I know people, they complain because of the guest stars, and yeah, they do kind of take you out of it a bit because it's obviously Jack Black and Lizzo. Like it'd be like if Tom Cruise just randomly showed up, not under tons of makeup. You know, it's like, well, obviously that's Tom Cruise. You know, that's kind of the problem with big name stars. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it always kind of takes you out a bit. And even Christopher Lloyd. And I love Christopher Lloyd. I wish he was in more things because I know the clock is ticking there. But even there, it's like, that's Christopher Lloyd. Like, I like his character, though.
Yeah, I like the fact that they actually paid homage to, you know, the prequel trilogy, you know, and that there are people out there that's like, not only did they not like the Empire, but they liked what there was before. They liked the Separatists and all of that. And that just, you never got that kind of feel. You know, though, I was just, you know, you're talking about that. The one thing that came to mind is that episode of The Mandalorian actually reminded me of like an episode of like The Next Generation. And, you know, if I'm fine with that, but you need to have a seasons like The Next Generation and actually have, you know, multiple episodes where you can build up some sort of, you know, random story or not even have it be in a series or whatever. I'd be all for that if they did that. I don't know how it would work. I don't know how you would follow that if you just had like some sort of random New Republic.
I think it depending on what the era was, like if it's in the same area as The Mandalorian, it'd probably have to be like a New Republic patrol or the Rangers or whatever they're calling them. You know, just kind of a story of the week kind of deal.
It could be the Mr. Plot Convenience that was able to find that Moff Gideon shuttle just randomly floating in space.
Yeah. It's not like space is near infinite or anything. Yeah, I mean, something like that would work. Or, I mean, if they really want to be experimental, follow like a freighter pilot or something, you know. And that's one of the few things. That's one of the things that I continually criticize Star Wars for, and what I do like about some of the shows is that, look, I love the Jedi and Sith conflict. I love the Empire and the Rebellion conflict, but it's a whole galaxy, and assuming they didn't do something stupid like throw out the expanded universe, because who would do that? We've got history going back tens of thousands of years. Like, you could put any story in there. Like, the MCU understands this, you know, because their movies, it's a comic book movie plus, you know, like Captain America, plus World War II story, you know, Iron Man plus kind of vague sci-fi story, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy plus space story, you know, Thor plus space magic story, you know. In fact, Guardians of the Galaxy, you also have heist movie in there. Same thing with Ant-Man. You know, Captain America 2 is like a plus political spy thriller going on. And that's what Star Wars needs to do for the brand. The old books did this. The books went all over the damn place. But the shows is how they need to do this. Is like take a tangent and just go with it. And that's one of the reasons I kind of like Solo was that it's not. I mean, all the big things are happening, but not in the movie. It's happening around the movie. The movie's about a heist.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I like Solo.
And we've talked a lot about Star Wars. You might want to flip over back to Picard. Picard was not 100% flawless in its execution. There were a few things here and there that I was like, yeah, that's a little hit and miss there. I mean, the one that I saw someone talking about today was the fact that they talked about not seeing the Borg for 10 years, but yet the previous season had the Borg in it.
Now I want to throw some out here in fairness to my judgment of this season. I stopped season 2 like 3 episodes in. I was like, I'm checking out. I'm done. I've seen clips of how the season ended, so I know that the Borg were still a thing. I know that Girardi basically became a queen, and some stuff happened there. And I know that Q bought the farm, and so I know some things. I know some of the things that happened. And
did Q buy the farm? That's the question.
I think he did. I think that's what his comment at the very end was, that whole like your linear perception of time. Remember, he's an immortal. Well, was. But there's that one episode in, I think it's Voyager. It might be the Next Generation, but I think it's Voyager, where the 1Q wants to commit suicide. And he takes him to a place, it's just like a gas station or something, on like a desert, dusty road, and the road just seems to stretch both directions forever. And he's like, that's the beginning of the universe, that's the end of the, it's like, it's just a big loop. Like, I can go to any place on this point. I've been to every place on this point. And the other Q would be the same. It's him, but from before that happened, at some other random point in his life, or they really are infinite. It was just some fragment of him that died. I don't know. Hopefully we do actually get a follow-up series, because I actually liked the way things were going at the end there. I'd watch a show about Seven being the captain.
I'm assuming they're going to. Like I said, you need to watch Strange New Worlds. I thought it was decent.
I'm getting ready to start watching it, so I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to start watching it. And I think season 2 is coming out in June, so I need to get on that.
At least I thought it was a little bit better than Discovery.
Well, I do like the guy playing Pike.
Yeah.
So I have that goal. That was the main reason I suffered through season 2 of Discovery. So, and I have not suffered through season 4 and 3.
I tried.
But yes, to Jim's point, at the end of season 2, we had the Borg. And then like, oh, we haven't seen it for 10 years. And the Queen's all like, you left me out here in the middle of nowhere. And I, like, the first time I was like, what the hell is she talking about? When did any of this happen?
It's two different. Well, you got to understand though.
It's two different Queens, because that's for sure.
Yeah.
I know, at least voice wise, that's the one from First Contact. But it can't be her because she died in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, but they're actually, I don't know. They could be the same Queen though too, because the one came from the past into the future.
Which one?
The one that merged with Girardi.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
So it's possible it could be the same Queen, just from two different points in time. I don't know. I never got too much into that, but
yeah, that was one of those things. Like, I'm willing to overlook this. I'm willing to overlook the fact that it's actually been a little bit more than 20 years since the crew was together. I think it's more like 30 at this point, but okay, fine. 20 years ago, Picard's got a son. Fine, good, happy for him. And there's some little things like that it's not perfect, and it's definitely fueled by nostalgia.
Yeah,
like through and through. Like I'm not even going to attempt to say that's not the case. It's definitely the case, but it's good.
And nothing wrong with the little. Like I said, I've seen some people complaining about fan service. I'm like, to a point, and I think they kept it to a minimum. I mean, at least they explained why the Enterprise D was back. Like I said, my biggest complaint was that they were talking about needing a cloaking device, and the Defiant was there, probably still with its cloaking device. It would have been probably an easier fit to a Federation ship.
You would think so.
Than pulling one from the Bird of Prey. And the fact that they knew it was the bird of prey and not the Romulan warbird or the Defiant,
Yeah.
or whoever else knows what else was out there. What was it? The Perseus. I'm trying to think of the one that Riker served on.
Oh, God, what the hell was it on?
Because I just watched a video on that where they were talking about that same episode's the one where Riker is supposedly on the in the holodeck watching the end of Enterprise.
Really?
Yes.
How do they?
Because the whole point of that is that he needs to know how to speak to his commanding officer about a specific situation, which this was he had to speak to the admiral,
right? Because he was caught between the admiral who'd ordered him to do stuff, but he's Picard's first officer.
Yes.
Yeah. The Pegasus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes. That had I believe that had a cloaking device or some sort of.
It was a phased cloak, so that it could move through solid matter too.
Yeah, that's right, because it got embedded into a.
Yeah, and they took it with them. The Pegasus is still stuck there, but they took the cloak. That's how they got out. So I mean that's somewhere. That's probably at the Daystrom thing though, next to their copy of the Genesis device, and apparently Captain Kirk's body, that's already begun the speculation that Kirk's going to make a comeback in the show somewhere. You better hurry.
Well, supposedly the actor that played Kirk in Strange New Worlds is going to reprise his role as Kirk. So.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. The Klingons look accurate now. Well, kind of. Actually, they don't, do they? Because at the time of Strange New Worlds, they should look human. Not with the ridge. The ridge comes later. Right?
Yeah. Well, no, because there was the one episode of the Next Generation. I think it was the Next Generation, or one of the ones where they go. No, it was
Deep Space Nine where they go back.
They go back because that's where they were kind of explaining that. I'm trying to think. It was in.
Worf doesn't actually explain it because he's like, "Well, we're surrounded by Klingons," and I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
No, it was on Enterprise that they explained that because they used the
eugenics stuff.
They used the eugenics stuff to remove the ridges from the Klingons. So that's how they were able to.
Okay, so then because they were trying to do it to pass as more human-like.
Yes.
So they could be more sociable because the whole thing was they were trying to convince planets to join them instead of just conquering them like the Federation was trying to do. Okay, because you see some of those same Klingons in Deep Space Nine with the ridges when they're much, much older. Because the one dies, he goes down swinging against the Dominion. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but I know he does. He's supposed to be a Dahar master, if I remember right. But yeah, so overall, I thought Picard, there's all kinds of callbacks, but I felt it was a solid plot. Definitely called back to some shady things the Federation has done. Like, we knew they did shady things against the shapeshifters, so it wasn't a stretch to knew they had done other shady things against the shapeshifters, because they were probably a far greater threat than the Borg, realistically. Because the Borg was more of that's the hammer. The shapeshifters, that was the knife in the dark you'd never see coming. And, you can dodge the hammer, you can't dodge the other one. So then the two of them teaming up, not good. And if I caught the Queen's plan correctly, it was that she intended on the people that she had taken over to have them start having kids, right?
Yeah, I think it was a new evolution because that's what Jack was. He was the evolution of the Borg and humans and all of that, where it was organic more than the mechanical side of things. He still had all the abilities to be able to communicate, control, and all of that, but without the other I guess setbacks or whatever.
Yeah, interesting ploy, interesting change.
But since you did not see the end of season 3, there is a reason, or season 2, there is a reason why the other Borg didn't come to help, because they're actually part of the Federation even.
Yeah, I caught that is it Jihadi? Is that her name? I thought that her whole deal was she essentially tried to convince the Queen of, hey, look, you've tried brute force. You can see all the other timelines. You know you always lose. There's people that would be willing to join you. Recruit them, make it a positive. And that's what sold her on it. And so I assume that's where they went with it.
Well, yes and no. The end of the season was them stopping some sort of calamity that's going to destroy the galaxy or universe or whatever that is. And they asked...
As happens to one frequently in Starfleet.
Yes. And they asked to join Starfleet, and they said they would remain there to keep this thing at bay, which is why they couldn't come and help the Earth.
Okay, that makes sense.
So...
But, so to the overarching point here, though, Picard went from sketchy first season, in my opinion, obviously worst second season because I didn't even finish it, to season 3 being, where have you been all my life?
Yeah.
Whereas Mandalorian is more like, season 1 and 2, great. Season 3, where the hell are we going? Why are we going off the map?
Well, they did at least have a definitive end to that season. I'm not saying it was satisfying, but it was an end. I could say that was what I felt Boba Fett was missing. The book of Boba Fett just seemed like it stopped.
After it took its detour of 2 random episodes, The Mandalorian wedged into it.
Because I think it needed another episode of kind of, okay, let's finish up what happened here, the war and all of that, and let's start setting up a plot for the next season or whatever, which I doubt they'll have one, but if they do, it's
well, I mean, even if they don't, they'll just merge it with The Mandalorian. It's contemporary. He is a Mandalorian. I mean, that's what they'll do. They'll do a couple episode check-in to kind of resolve anything that feels unresolved and then go on. So, but, and then the funny thing with Picard is that it wasn't made by the guy who made season 1 and 2. It was someone else. And, I can't think of the guy's name who made season 1 and 2, but this is definitely one of those, he probably has egg on his face now. Because season 3 was what everyone wanted from the beginning. They were not necessarily the plot, but hey, look, if this is going to be about Picard, bring in the other people from the next generation. Make it logical, but bring them in. And, build your plot around that. One last hurrah for Picard and probably the rest of the crew because they were, roughly contemporary in age. And man, there were some deep cuts in the people we got. We got Ro Laren, and
Tuvok.
Tuvok. Then the woman who was the admiral there.
Yeah.
I can't think of her name. But she was the character. She was in the 2 episodes where Picard became Locutus, and she was on the Enterprise. They had been going over anti-Borg stuff, and she wanted Riker's spot because Riker didn't seem to be wanting to move up the chain of command. And she's kind of well, old man, you better keep up or ship out, And he's like, hold up, I'm the ranking officer here. Just slow your roll here. And it was her. And then at the beginning of the final episode, it's not Pavel Chekhov, I noticed. It's supposed to be his son, is who it's supposed to be, and it's Anton Chekhov. But it is other Chekhov, original Chekhov.
Yes.
I think of his name. This is going to really bother me, and I'm going to look foolish. But the original Chekhov, he does the voice. But they named him Anton Chekhov, kind of a commemoration for Anton Yeltsin, who played him in the newer movies, who unfortunately passed away. And that was a nice little note. He was the president of the Federation, so that was a nice little thing. We got to see Lore again for a little bit, and Data is back, kind of, along with kind of Lore and kind of Soon and in a kind of a human body almost. So.
And, well, I was just glad to see Spot again.
Oh yes, Spot. which I haven't seen the clip, but on YouTube there's a clip and the title is it's Brent Spiner saying that Spot was his worst his worst co-star or something. But yeah, it was good seeing Brent Spiner back, but as Data, but not Data, because Data is dead. And he acknowledges, that version of him is dead and gone, and he's not. This isn't him. He's not coming back. This is a new him, and he's more human, and definitely has emotions because Troy can detect emotions from him.
I think she's getting was a little annoyed by his emotions towards the end there.
Yeah, well, because now that he's got him, he's like, all right, well, how do you folks navigate these things?
It's about time. I mean, the guy, he died multiple times. And
Finally, basically being human now, as near as I can tell. Like, if she can detect emotions, then it basically has to be, right?
Yeah, he's still an android, he can still plug into the ship and do stuff like that, but it's more biomechanical, I'm assuming, versus,
And he's older, and I think he will keep aging, was the impression I got, so.
Which is probably mean he'll eventually die again.
I would assume so, yeah.
So to experience all the fun.
Now maybe he's synced up to Picard, so whenever Picard just shuts down, so does he. For those who didn't see season 1, Picard's also basically an android now, too. Which did lead to one really funny exchange with Jack that I thought, where Jack's like, so the aromatic syndrome, how'd you beat it? He's like, well, I didn't. He's like, oh, right, you died. So I thought that was funny. I think that was right after the, Jack, let's cut to the chase. When did the hair go? Picard gives him the enjoy it while it lasts.
Well, but he should actually look at his mom's side because the follically challenged usually blame their mother's side for that. So,
well, Beverly's got a full head of hair, even as she's got to be 60s, 70s now.
Yeah.
So, maybe.
So
maybe we got a little spice from the space ghost she slept with, but.
I was waiting for that to be what was behind the red door.
Oh no! I told you beforehand. I was pulling for the god of Shakari from Star Trek V, so then they could all ask him. But what do you need with a starship?
Could have been the emissaries from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, or the Pa Wraiths. There was definitely some options.
Could have been Benjamin Sisko.
Yeah, presumably he went. They said he joined with the prophets or something, right? He didn't technically die.
Yeah,
I guess was how we're supposed to interpret that.
So,
if we ever see any follow up to Deep Space Nine, hopefully we'll see him again. I always like Sisko. Didn't take any cues, crap. Just punched him in the face.
So back with the Mandalorian, we know we bashed it a bunch, and we talked about a few good things on there as well. Some of the things that I think Star Wars has been missing is actual space battles, stuff with starships. For a thing called Star Wars,
wars amongst the stars, perhaps.
And seeing the pirate ship, though I thought the pirate captain was a little goofy looking.
Looked like a villain from the Pirates of the Caribbean series,
or Swamp Thing.
There we go.
But his starship, I thought was a cool idea. Actually, the way that they had the landing deck right on top of the ship with the force field over top of it.
Yeah.
Make it like a pirate ship, but the ships still take off from it. And actually seeing a little bit of space battles, a little bit of actual flying around, and stuff going on. I just want to know where all these Imperials are at, just looking for random Mandalorian settlements to just keep bombing continuously.
Yeah. On that front, it's obvious that it's building towards Thrawn.
Yeah.
Because we finally got, is it Pelagian? How do you pronounce his name? Something like that. Thrawn's second in command. All throughout the novels, we finally saw him. Also,
is it Pelion?
Pelion, that's it. Also Hux, but it's not the same Hux, right?
Well, if it is, it's either a younger version of Old Man Hux, or because his father was.
Well, Hux isn't very old either. Well, so that's why I think it's probably that's probably his dad.
Yeah, because his dad was there for the burn or whatever they did, where they just went and scorched all the Imperial settlements as part of the Emperor's last last action or whatever.
Yeah, well, I've told Jim before what I think of that, so I'm not going to go into it here. But yeah, so seeing the Shadow Council there, and seeing old Moff Gideon's just like, yeah, but I mean, is Thrawn ever really going to return? Like, we don't have time for this. Just give me everything I need, and I'll go deal with these people. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, I think Thrawn is going to return. I mean, obviously, they're not here to see previews of the shows that are coming out, so they don't know that the Ahsoka series is coming out and Thrawn is in it. But, like, if you knew anything about Thrawn, he'd know that if Thrawn says he's coming back, he's coming back. You know? And I get that maybe Gideon is, like, stupidly Imperial and totally pro-human and hates Thrawn. But unless that's the case, like, I think he either jumped the gun with his plan here or didn't commit sufficient forces to the task.
Well, my biggest complaint about all that is that he's like, oh, I'm going to let him come to me, and not thinking, oh, he's just going to walk right through the middle of all of my clones, and he's not going to do something
and hit the clone self-destruct button.
Yes, but I heard.
I was going to say I happened to watch the pitch meeting for this earlier, and this is where the producer was like, "But why would you put that button in there?" It's like, I don't know. Don't ask.
Well, I did see somebody post, like, the Gideon that he fought was actually a clone because he didn't have a mustache.
Well, I mean, since we know Gideon had those clones, yeah, we have the out to just keep bringing him back, of being like, those weren't the only clones. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you run into with clones and time travelers. Or in the case of Strife from the X-Men, a time-traveling clone. The worst of all possibilities.
I still want to know what his whole plan was, give himself the Force. They know that doesn't work. They know that you can inject somebody with midichlorian-rich blood and it does not give you Force abilities. That's what they did to General Grievous. He's supposed to have Sifo Dyas's blood running through him. Yeah,
but is that different from having it from the moment of creation?
Possibly, but
like the version of him that's here won't ever have it, but the clone could, I think, because if you clone, at least in the old expanded universe, if you cloned a Jedi, they had the Force.
But see, that goes against the nature of the will, or the will of the Force.
I don't know. I just know it worked with Jerus Sabaoth, and I'm probably horribly butchering his name. Because he was the one in charge of the outbound flight expedition.
The one that Thrawn.
And at the end, he falls to the dark side and tries to kill Thrawn with the Force over like a video screen. And Thrawn had a bunch of droid fighters that had already penetrated the ship, and they were loaded up with like nerve gas or something. And so he's still able to like hit the button to detonate them all. So he kills everyone on the ship. And then in the Heir to the Empire trilogy, they come to, I think it's even called Mount Tannis. It's where the Emperor had a whole bunch of like technology buried there. And one of the things were these Sparti clone cylinders, which can produce adult clones in a week. And Jerus Sabaoth was there. And Thrawn, as they're leaving, tells Pelion, he's like, that's a clone. It's like, how do you know? He's like, I killed the original. So that's how he knew it was a clone. And because they had his DNA, then that clone makes a clone of Luke from the Hand, known as Luke. But Luke couldn't even talk; he just kind of screams as it swings at Luke. And I think Mara Jade kills the clone, which is what finally shuts down the programming in her mind that the Emperor put in there to kill Luke. And that's how she gets around it: is she killed the clone. That's enough to satisfy the conditioning. So, great books, by the way. You should read them. We might get a version of it with the Ahsoka series, because they at least threw out the line there somewhere. What does he think? Is he the heir to the Empire? So they're clearly alluding to them, and it's all about Thrawn. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get Mara Jade.
For a conversation about Picard and Mandalorian.
That's all right. It meanders. It happens.
But no, I think, like I said, visually, I think the Mandalorian did, well. I mean, I think it it you get, the ships entering and exiting atmosphere, compared to other people, and it feels, it feels more lived and more, more real versus flying the Enterprise D through a Borg cube like it's the Millennium Falcon and the Death Star.
Yeah, I mean, that was a little preposterous. Props out to the Borg, though, for having internal defenses. You noticed that, I assume. Like, the Borg didn't take any chances on that one. They were just facing a superior intelligence, I guess. But, yeah. Oh, the cloaking device thing, I was going to mention that. The only problem I had with that, in the final part, they were like, oh, it's line-of-sight communication that tries to take over the ship. Okay, so the ship cloaks. Now, depending on how the line-of-sight thing works, why don't they just, broadband that? They don't have to see the ship. The signal just has to hit the ship.
Yeah.
And unless the cloaking device actually disrupts the signal itself, which it could, because I'm sure it bends light somehow.
Well, same reason why you can't use your shields. Because you can't have shields active. You can't fire weapons while cloaked.
Well, the shields I always assumed was because it would interfere with the cloak. Like the two fields would screw up. The weapons I just figured is drain on the system or something, because they did overcome that in at least 2 different models. Like Chang's Bird of Prey and the Scimitar could both fire while cloaked. Although the Scimitar was ludicrously overpowered, so but depending on how everything worked, they should have just been sending a broadband signal out, because they would make contact with a cloaked ship. Didn't matter where it was, unless the cloak itself disrupted the signal and stopped it from hitting. In which case, they should have said that instead of oh, well, they can't see us, so they can't do it. It's well, no, they could just fire phasers in a rotational array. They'll hit you eventually. They don't have to see you to hit you. They just have to hit you to hit you.
Yeah.
And so, But anyway, that's an insanely minor nitpick.
Well, that
It's just one of those things that even at the time I was like, don't really think that'd work, but okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the bird of prey that was pulled from the San Francisco Bay from.
Yeah.
So that would have also had the flaw where they were able to fire a torpedo up its tailpipe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then depending on how old the model was, if the model in Generations had this fault, this one would too, where they could hit it with the whatever beam they hit that one with to cause the cloak to engage, because that dropped the shields, because that's how they destroyed the one in Generations. And they all look the same, even though I know they're different models. But, there's a potential for all kinds of problems with that one. But, if they would have absolutely had to, maybe they could go into the memory banks. No, they didn't bring the memory banks in the ship. I was going to say, go into the memory banks and figure out how they had to catapult around the sun to rewind time and fix everything.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's probably something about, time travel being banned unless you're going to get a couple of whales.
Oh, I think time travel very much violates the Prime Directive. Well, I would think it would, but hell, in the original series, there's a couple times they intentionally went back in time just to observe things, right? Like the one where they're back in the 60s and that one rando guy shows up, Gary, whatever.
Yeah.
Weird episode. That was supposed to launch a different show. That's why that episode's like that.
And they just throw the Prime Directive out the window all the times, like Insurrection. Just we're gonna build a settlement on the planet, watch these people.
Yeah.
You got the technology where you can view anything from any point in time from space. Why the hell do you need a research station on the planet?
I don't know. But yeah, so overall, I feel like Picard definitely way above seasons 1 and 2. Mandalorian kind of below seasons 1 and 2. Not terrible, but it's definitely slippage between seasons 1 and 2 to 3, in my opinion. But Picard, it's here's 1 and 2, here's 3. This is the ending we deserved. And, I'm glad it had the throwback. The ending is the poker game.
Well, that's how it should have ended. I
yeah.
mean, that was them about how every episode or every other episode started in the Next Generation was that plane.
But that was the callback to All Good Things, where Picard finally goes in and joins them, and he just kind of looks at them all and he's like, I should have done this years ago. This was him finally, like, they're all together finally. And
I saw somebody actually said that they actually had some hints of Lower Decks actually mentioned in Picard, one of the races of aliens.
Maybe. I haven't watched Lower Decks. I hear it's good, though. So you've told me it's good.
Yeah, it's good.
So
I mean, it's not fantastic by any means, but it gets you a little bit of a Star Wars or Star Trek fix without actually getting too serious about things. I mean, sometimes the humor's a little forced here and there, but it's all right.
So where do you think the seasons kind of fill out there? As far as like Picard season 3 compared to 1 and 2, and Mandalorian 3 compared to 1 and 2, and
well, I think they had a neat idea in season 1 of Picard. I think them scavenging a Borg cube was kind of a a neat concept, but I don't know. I thought it faltered. It was a slog to get through season 2 of Picard. Like I couldn't, like any other.
You're a better man than I, Jim.
Any other season, I was able to binge watch it from beginning to end without whatever. I mean, Picard, season 3, I did end up, watching every episode when it came out, but the other 2 I had to end up binge watching, and I couldn't do the second one. And like I said, Mandalorian, same thing. Except for they went the other way. Started high. I did like the second season because I did like the Dark Troopers.
I liked season 1 and 2, and I like the call out to the Dark Troopers. I was like, wow, that's of all the things from the EU to salvage, I did not expect that.
Because like Dark Forces and all that was awesome game.
Yeah.
And then like I said, season 3 wasn't bad. It just to me it didn't feel like it was as episodic. Like you could have put some of those episodes in about any order, and it would have still worked. And like I said, if they're going to make a show like that, make it longer, make a longer season. You can still have a ongoing story and then fill it with the filler, but then people will know that okay, this is going to be, I don't even know how many episodes of The Next Generation would be in a season.
I think The Next Generation, it's around 13 to a season. I think.
See, that's about how many. That's
because I mean, Andor showed you could do a longer season of Star Wars. Andor was 12 episodes. Although, if you have not seen it, binge watch the first 3 episodes before you pass judgment, because you need to see that arc, because that's going to feel slow, but the payoff is spectacular.
Yeah,
best thing to come out of Star Wars in a while.
Yes.
So. But I think that's a pretty solid talk on everything there. So probably call it a day with that. So Jim, thank you for showing up here for the video, and
not a problem.
You folks, thank you for hopefully watching all this. Let us know what you think in the comments. Did you watch either of the 2 shows? Do you plan on watching either of the 2 shows? What do you think? Do you agree, disagree? We totally out to lunch? You Babylon 5 forever and the other 2 can suck it? Just let us know anyway. But thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. But otherwise, catch you later.